This is the potentially first. Let's see how tragically well this ends up going. NA version of developing talent. All right. So here I have Rafaa, who's just mogging everyone with his style, with his equipment, with absolutely everything right now.
As always.
Cubby right below me, who has admitted defeat, which, in fairness, against those odds, just you basically have no choice. And I have Kari Wave here as well. Two below me are actually color casters, so they will provide most of the knowledge for this because I do not actually have an intense history of watching NA Amateur and Academy, so I actually have questions to ask for this one, right? So instead of just giving permission to my co-host to speak, I actually want them to talk this time. So there's a lot of pressure on those two. Rafaa can just sit there looking absolutely beautiful and make sure that no one, talks too much over each other, all right? That's mostly his job, all right? So, yeah.
Thanks, man.
My first impressions on watching this region for the last couple of days is that I was way more invested in Amateur than I was in Academy. A lot of the players in Amateur that I thought were quite good were players that I basically never heard of, which is pretty exciting for me. But I don't really have an overall view of the power levels of the teams outside of the 1 week of them that I've watched. So my first question to basically any of you that wants to jump in immediately is how do you view the power levels of these teams? Where do you view their biggest strengths, etc.? Who are the big ones to watch for you guys?
Or amateur specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right off the bat, so the way that the system works for NA, they just started it off this year. It should be different from when you joined us for Cup last year, veteran, with Proving Grounds for the EU fans that aren't sure. So what this is they broke down the wall between Academy and Amateur, which is very good for the space because we always had decent Amateur teams we thought could punch above their weight class in Academy, much like how we think the best Academy teams can take down some of the LCS teams that we have at the moment. So they broke down the walls, Proving Grounds, a system where 16 teams just compete, and there's a set of tournaments for the amateur teams to get there, whereas Academy gets 6 out of the 10 teams there, and then the bottom 4 teams in Academy have to go compete in the amateur events to actually earn their spot in a Proving Grounds. So right off the bat, right now we are 1 tournament is done, and we're in the middle of the second one, and there are 4 this split. So the winner of the first one was Wildcard Red. That is a team that the most recognizable player on that would be Arrow. Dokla was also on there, but of course Dokla, we were just watching him on TL. He got picked up with the Alfari situation. And they've gotten off to a slow start and risen, but given the fact they're defending champs, they're probably the best place to start. And then I'll send it over to one of you guys to talk about Zeus, which is probably next.
Zeus Gaming. You got Griffin and Tuesday, and Alorum, which are all names that are recognizable if you've been watching Academy in the past or LCS since Griffin, or back in the past was going by the name Wiggly at the time. Make up the top 3 core of that squad, and then you have Raheen and Pocket Rhino. Raheen is a new player as of this year. Pocket Rhino did play in Team Liquid Academy in the previous split, or not spring, but the previous year. Mm-hmm. It is another team that is probably the other strongest team to watch out for this entire Proving Ground split. Personally, going into that matchup, I had Zeus winning against Wildcard Red. Cubby did too, as we were both wrong on predictions. But I still think Zeus is a roster that will be one of the stronger, at least top 3 teams going into Proving Grounds for the rest of the summer sprint.
Kari, who's next?
Who do you want to go next? Digmig?
Kari, go.
You want to talk about Dignitas Mirage?
Yeah, I mean, whichever team excites you, go for it.
Yeah. So Dignitas Mirage was the amateur team that was just Mirage that got acquired by Dignitas. Mm-hmm. Kind of popped off right after the announcement and then fell off. So they had a burst of inspiration and then kind of fell off the map. But that's Dragoon, who's that Darius one trick. That was really funny. They gave it to him once and he popped off on it. Cyber, I think everybody knows who that is at this point. DNA, Cow, and I'm not actually familiar with Light Pulse at all. I did watch a few of these games, and I'm not impressed, but so it goes. Evil Genius Prodigies? Huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys any I think Rafa wants to take this one, yeah?
What if
Sure.
just
I mean,
shifting around?
Evil Geniuses Prodigies at this point is probably the strongest LCS affiliated team in amateur right now. They were also the strongest LCS affiliated team during the spring split. That roster consists of Surdy, Tomio, Aspect, currently Shoryu, for those that recognize Academy. Prior splits played in Team Liquid in the year before. Or not the year before, 2 years before. He also was on the winning roster for Scouting Grounds in 2020 on a new esports. You also have Skytech, who is a new support. During the spring split, that bot lane was actually Danny, who is now on the Evil Geniuses LCS roster, and Mist, who is MIA. I'm not sure what happened to Mist. I don't know where he is right now, but they have a new support in Skytech. When you look at the other amateur teams, Kari mentioned briefly Dignitas Mirage. I think they are currently one of the weaker, if not the weakest, LCS affiliated team, because when you look at the rest, you have 100 Thieves next, who have kind of a promising start to in Risen right now. Cloud9 Amateur have a couple of players in Wixie and EXU that I think are very strong. Breezy also is another notable player that did have some time in the 100 Thieves Academy in the, I want to say, the prior year before Poom came in. And and then TSM Amateur, now that they have picked up my boy from Utah, Frost Force, in the jungle, between him and Doxa, who are a collegiate duo from Winthrop University, who just won collegiate finals just this past month. That is also an exciting roster to look at, because I think with Doxa and Frost Force, that's going to be a lot more powerful than their performance in Spring Split, and even during Challengers Uprising for the first Tier 2 event. And even then, Eclipse is also someone that can hold his own.
Yeah, the only other team that we haven't mentioned that's kind of worth bringing up is Resolve, which, much like the NLC version of Barrage, was Barrage and then was acquired by Resolve. It was a team that had a really good run in Proving Grounds with their core of 4. Gorico, former GGA, went over to TSM's secondary team, and they picked up another AD Array who's pretty solid. But the weird part about NA Academy or Amateur at the moment, which you probably found going through the VODs veteran, is that there aren't a lot of great teams, but there are good players on bad teams, which makes it pretty interesting, because you find like some golden nuggets on these teams where it's like, oh, like they don't like know what they're doing, or like they don't have the best start, but like you see good moments from players even in losses, which for me that's what makes Amateur kind of fun at the moment, because like a lot of the talent's spread out.
Can each of you give me like one golden nugget then, and then I'll say something about?
One golden nugget.
Okay.
So you were teasing that you had a mid that you had never heard of, that you were very impressed with, and my instant guess is Dark Wings from AoE.
We'll get to which one I actually have. Is that your golden nugget though?
Yes, it is. Okay. So this guy,
I did like him.
So he's 19 or 20 at the moment. I'm not exactly sure what his age is, but he was competing in collegiate for the school Stony Brook. And he has never had an opportunity to work with an org, whether it's a LCS third team or an academy team. And on Zeus Gaming, in Proving Grounds last split, they beat TSM and gave a lot of the academy teams a big run for their money in his first split in amateur. And that was him playing only mages. So, that was the matter, right? It was Victor, Azir, Orianna. Very solid decision-making, was always getting his farm. Every team fight was so consistent for an amateur player. And now in this split, where he's playing all these bruisers, well, it turns out he always had this pocket Aatrox that he used to play occasionally mid. And his Lee Sin and Set and bruiser play mid is really impressive. And a lot of the mid laners have somewhat struggled shifting into that new meta. Darkwings has not. I know that Raafaa and I contribute to a prospect list that's ran by Tim Sevenhusen, a name that a lot of you might recognize for Oracle's Elixir. We're in charge of putting Like, we have a cumulative list with us two, him, and then Smacks, another colorcaster in NA, where that kind of dedicates the list for Mobiletic's top 10. Me and Sim both have Darkwings as our top prospect in all of Amateur. The fact that this guy has never worked with a team, is already showing a lot of consistency and a wide champion pool where he's impressive on a lot of different archetypes of roles mid, makes him really excited and a fun golden nugget for me.
I think it's also fun to mention that he won a Red Bull solo queue competition, even though that's not like the most prestigious thing compared to the rest of his accomplishments in Proving Grounds. That competition flexed his champion pool, and that it's something, and it goes back to what Cubby is saying, that this meta shift has been more favorable to Darkwings than it has to a lot of other mid laners, because throughout that solo queue competition, he mainly specialized in using a lot of fighters and bruisers. So the fact that he knows, and he already knows how to play those, in addition to being able to pick up the control mages meta that was dominant during the spring Proving Grounds tournament, is very honorable.
All right. Well, okay, what's yours then, Rafa, since you're already talking for Golden Nugget?
Golden Nugget?
Can't take the same one.
Good player, bad team.
Good player on a bad team.
Oh.
Do you have one, Kari?
Maybe.
You can hand over to Kari if you don't if you need more time to think, Rafa.
I was not prepared for.
You were prepared. Come on.
Cubby went on for
I
ages.
think
Gave
he
you
is
enough
prepared.
time.
I think Rafa wants to be careful about what he says, specifically about promising young players' careers, and I think that there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, no,
we don't
there
want to
is.
obviously.
Yeah, there is.
Do you have
I don't
one,
want to
Kari?
shit on people, but gosh, I'm going through the standouts that I felt, especially during the last Proving Grounds round that we went through. And I think the name that sort of stands out to me is probably Shoryu. I think Shoryu's been around for too long to be considered promising new talent, though. So if I had to go like new, gosh, this is so hard. Because I obviously have my favorites, but I don't know, man. It's hard. I'm having the same, like, I love all my children equally, but like, for example, like, I don't necessarily care for like Wixie, you know what I mean? Like, I don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings. But I think one of the ones in particular, I think it probably is either Breezy or Shoryu, but Shoryu's been around for too long for me to really go for that one. But I think that Breezy on C9AM is promising talent. I also have a lot of bias because he was on ASU's esports team, and then got promoted into what is essentially, I mean, they make a good enough living to be able to play semi-pro. So I don't know. There's something about college players who actually make it through and have like a successful career afterwards. Gets me a little sentimental, but I do believe that Breezy's actually really good given the right ADC. And so that's what I said, like, I love all my children equally. I don't care for Wixie, but I like Breezy.
Wixie hate, man.
Rafa, you
There's
got
no
one
Wixie
there?
hate. It's not Wixie hate. It's not Wixie hate. There's just different styles of play, and I do not think these two puzzle pieces fit together properly. I think what I really like about, I don't know, man. I feel bad already. I'm just gonna keep
Breezy's a
drinking.
good choice. I will say that Breezy did play on 100 Thieves Academy last year before Poom came in, so he's not like quote unquote new, but
a lot of these people aren't new, you know, like we're digging deeper than Academy, that's for sure. Like, imagine trying to find somebody new.
I
on
actually have
Academy
no idea
right
if
now.
my one's even new or not, so there you go.
All right. For me, I think I told this to Cubby during the spring split. But for me, I think Matty Moo has always been someone
Matty.
that I think I know Cubby is looking at me and he's like, man, you think Matty is that good?
Not of late. Yep.
Well, probably I haven't seen recent games. I just know that during the spring split, he and Array were people that did a lot of work on Supernova, and they did make a decent push during the last chance qualifier. They didn't make it, So, but recently looking now, like I don't like. If I were to say Quacker, that would mean that's saying like Wildcard Black is a bad team, and I don't think Wildcard Black is a bad team.
Dude,
But
you got to pick some bad teams. I think the Quacker would be a really good choice. I think Quacker's like actually really good. Like
yeah, like Quacker. But I remember like after seeing the pentakill he got on Lucian and just how he played in position in that game, that was actually insane. And I think he shot himself up to be by far the best top lane prospect that we have that hasn't already been in Academy or LCS.
I actually really like the Matty pick, to be honest. I kind of wish that you were stuck with that instead of getting alphaed off by Cubby, because Matty was like the only jungler that I saw this week that was actually reacting to changes on the map properly. He was genuinely peeling off camps on time to be there when waves needed it, when there were opportunities to be done, and he was the only one constantly reacting to the fact that opponents aren't going to be playing perfectly, and when they give you those windows in however many seconds, you have to be reacting now, and he was the only one doing that. It's the only one where when he played a game of Hecarim, and I was thinking that this is the only guy who's been given a champion that can react faster to these things and is actually using them to do so. I thought it was hard carrying that game on Supernova, to be honest. The only other player on there that was even notable was like Strompest when he was playing Veigar, but that's kind of like cheating because he's really well known for that, to the point where I know Strompest is known for Veigar, right? So he's really well known for that.
Was he doing the Cosmic Drive Rush Veigar too?
Yeah, he did Cosmic Drive Rush Veigar, yeah.
I love it, yeah.
I mean, I assume he's going to do whatever Veigar V2 won't at him on Twitter and flame him for. So my personal, like, good player on a bad team Golden Nugget guy, and none of you mentioned him even tangentially, is actually Leo. And Leo even bodied your boy Darkwings, by the way, and it wasn't even close.
I know.
But so most mid laners...
Easy AoE randoms, yeah?
Most mid laners, most mid laners that I've seen have like at least some aspects that they're just not doing very well, which isn't like a coachable thing, right? So say that you look at like Academy, and we were just watching JoJo play, right? And my issue with like that Evil Geniuses Academy team would be that teamfights don't necessarily go super well for them, but JoJo's at least somewhat good in like one-on-one scenarios, even if sometimes he seems to feel like he has to do something when he doesn't. Or you have someone like Robbie Bob, where sometimes their judgment on which fights to take might not be like completely on, right? But when it comes to this guy, I feel like his judgment on which fights he can and can't take are good, and he just goes for it. Like, he plays as crazy as someone like Quacker does, but almost every time where he decides to go absolutely nuts, it is just correct. And there will be times in team fights where he'll just do things that seem way too well thought out in the moment for someone playing at that level. Like a Seraphine game that he played against Darkwings, where they ended up engaging on what they figured were 3 people in River, and he just Seraphine ults both of their carries on the backline, burst them down to half HP, but because now they've missed the engage, he's basically just won the team fight solo for his team. And that seemed way too patient and like way too calculated for what I normally expect of that level. He plays really well around the map. He plays really good on opportunities that he sees around the map. He plays really good on immediate opportunities he sees in fights, and he just plays mechanically so well, and just plays really crazy, to be honest, but in a calculated manner. And I was really surprised to find this guy at all, to be honest. Because until then, there were a lot of like, this mid looks good, this mid looks promising, but this guy feels like a guy who's so raw that you could like, that he's like the raw diamond that you can like chisel down and shape into something really good. But I was genuinely really impressed when I saw him.
So, funny story about that, actually. He was not even the starting mid laner. The starting mid laner was supposed to be this guy, Comp 9.
Oh my god, okay.
Yeah, and like instantly, once the coach took over in Con, they flip-flopped him like immediately. And I think that Leo, that's a good pick. Leo's sleepily been really good. I'm still really high on Darkwings because of like his overall performance from last split, and because Leo had some okay games in the earlier tournament, but he was really good in that series, and that's a good choice. I like that choice.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really interesting bit of context then, because I had no idea because this guy's called like Leo99, and then it's like, is this guy like 22? Is he actually been here for ages? I have no idea if I'm praising a guy like maybe missed his opportunity years ago, but this guy even being a sub is like really weird to me. Always Plan Ahead looked good, but Always Plan Ahead looked good in a really weird way that I didn't expect. Because I know Always Plan Ahead because he's an Aurelion Soul one trick. And we have an we have a couple of Aurelion Soul one tricks now in Europe, but Always Plan Ahead was like always the guy that they brought up in North America. But unironically, I really liked this guy when he wasn't on Aurelion Soul. And when he was on Aurelion Soul, it's like you're missing so much around the map. I'm telling you, this guy is dead on your screen right now, and just nothing's happening. But the purpose of Aurelion Soul for his team seems to be that if he is constantly like keeping mid in lane, then at least his jungler can do stuff or something, right? But it's like I didn't expect this guy's Aurelion Soul to be so passive and then turn into like a late game split pusher. It was just so weird to watch. But then this guy's on Nico and he's like fisting. Like, it's so insane, actually. He had a really good Lucian game as well. It's like
he destroyed in that Lucian game for Risen.
It's like what's going on here? You're on Aurelion Soul one trick. It's like your worst chance.
I think it's worth mentioning that APA. One of the first initiative episodes I did was with APA, and we talked about how did you develop your champion pool and what that journey has been like, and this was like at the beginning of the year. So going into when he got onto Supernova, which was the first competitive team that he actually got a chance to shine, because other competitive teams like Lotus Bloom was a fucking joke, and they scamossed him. That whole Lotus Esports was a fucking scam. Anyway, APA he likes to clarify that he is a Asol Talia Kled 3 trick that he started out. Basically, they all do the fucking same thing. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I like him now.
Shove your lane, and then you go roam, and even if you don't win your lane, you win the rest of the map, right? But then through Supernova, he developed and picked up Syndra and Orianna, which historically were two champions that you always have to like be able to play, and understanding how to play control mages at all, which was something that was very difficult for AP at the beginning. But near the end of Scouting Grounds, he was solo killing players and the rest of his mid lane competition on champions like Orianna. And then going into the spring split, he obviously had to be able to play champions like Victor and the rest of the control mage meta. But now going into summer, where you have to be able to play Lucian, I never thought that APA would actually be able to have a decent Lucian, let alone a Lucian that is able to pop off in games. Just knowing the history that APA had. So seeing that progression, I know I freaked out and was super happy with Cubby on a cast where I saw him had Lucian, and I was just like, what the fuck? This is the dude that like played specifically Asol Talia only in solo queue, and now he's playing a marksman in mid lane. So I think the notable thing is his progression and his development. So I understand that there's still mistakes that he makes, but he is open to feedback and criticism, and he is a lot better from when I first met him, because he was not as receptive to feedback, but he has matured a lot.
When it comes to like that kind of a player, so we have a player called Diplex in Europe who's developed really well in Champ Pool, but he actually began as a Kled Cho'Gath mid 2 trick. And he also was a guy who like preferred to play just push and roam and engage playstyles. And the really impressive thing about him was that he was really alpha about the windows that he took, and they were correct windows, and he was the primary engage for his team when he was like 16. When I think about Lucian, that's a champion that Diplex also initially like shifted into when he was moving away from his crazier champs. Kiana was another one, but these champions do somewhat function as like push and roam, and he definitely played Lucian as like push, roam, and get the map. The thing about his Nico gameplay was every single time that, I think it was Aspects was the enemy mid laner in the game that I was watching him play. Every single time that this guy was in lethal, the guy just immediately saw it and he was dead. Like every time. Like he had a real killer instinct about him when he was playing Nico, which was not something that I would have expected. Not just from the fact that he played Aurelion Sol and was like a one trick on it, but also from how he was playing Aurelion Sol, right? Yeah. So that was actually just really impressive to me that he's developed this on other champions, because he's done that faster than Diplex ended up doing. Diplex is a much more complete player now, so it's obviously possible. But
I think in the last tournament, he solo killed a Silas's Ziggs too. Like, just like he always, it's fun because like he's always been known to have like a champion pool that was like out there because like initially like that's how he started off, and he's been able to marry that unique picks like Nico, like a pocket Ziggs that he's always had. Is obviously Ziggs meta now, but he's always had a pocket Ziggs with things like picking up the meta picks, and it's been fun to watch him grow. He's grown so much since like you would have covered him with Cup, right, and Supernova being there. So yeah.
What do you think about the rest of his team then? Because I thought Fnatic was still quite good. The weird thing about the team that I found was that when they were like initiating, generally they would be behind on the initiations. Like they would always be very out of sync on them. But if they were playing like a more defensive game, then they were all very much on board with each other. But the moment that they start trying to like spread the map out, like Array would get caught, or PCO would be off and not on time. Something like this would happen. But if they were defensive, they were reacting very well to plays, I thought.
At least during the spring split and then going into Challengers Uprising, they were very consistent around playing around the third dragon of the game. They didn't. A lot of times they wouldn't care about the first or second dragon. If they got it, cool. If they didn't, fuck it. Third dragon comes up. Most of the time, Pykick Lord and APA are all already ready, whether they have teleport advantage or not. They are in position to make flanks and make plays, and then Fnatic usually makes the call and makes the engage, and that is a lot where Resolve's games are decided. If they flip and the engage is correct, they win the game. If they don't, then it is very doomed for Resolve, and that is something that was common a lot even when they were on the Barrage roster.
Okay, going back to the AoE team then, because we mentioned both Darkwings and Leo. On the main AoE team, because they have AoE and AoE randoms. Just to clarify, AoE randoms is supposed to be the worst team of the two, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the funny thing about it all, and Incon is very proud that the worst team beat out the Big Brother team, and not only you've also praised their mid laner Leo in being a golden nugget as well.
Yeah, the teams actually weren't built that way. They were built to both be equally as good. They married their MMRs, to be equal.
They were, but like the second team's named randoms, so like it's hard for me to.
So it's rude. It's rude.
Yeah, it's either like just straight up rude, or like it's a little like it's like the LCS press coverage. It's like we're not gonna share those. We're just leaving.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's just
There were definitely more players on the main but supposed to be equal team that I actually thought were quite good individually anyway. Like I thought Faisal was really good, for example. I actually thought both of this team's solo lanes were really good. Darkwings was obviously getting a lot more advantages in lane, but I thought Faisal was playing really well from what I saw of him. And then it's kind of difficult to find supports to talk about in the amateurs. I almost said ERL. In amateur scene, but Fizzy Sub actually does play the map pretty well.
Okay.
So I like those two. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
All right, what do you got? You a Fizzy fan?
I mean, as far as like roaming supports go, I think that Fizzy's okay. Hold on one second.
Who would you compare him to then? If you think he's like okay, like who's really good on that? Because outside of him, I had like Busio, but
Yes.
For example, I didn't even see a Dignitas game, Dignitas amateur game. So there's just straight up teams that I don't even know exist. Like who would you say is above him?
Going to keep holding on to dear life to my Breezy pick because I think that there is untapped potential there. I do think that's a person that can be shaped. I also think Winter is relatively good as well, and I think that he deserves some credit for his support game as well. I think that we are actually kind of overlooking Winter on Resolve because he's had a consistent performance, in my opinion. I think he's been relatively consistent.
I'm not sure if I'd say it's down to roaming, but I actually did think Winter was doing surprisingly well given things that I'd heard, right? At least this week, I thought his games were pretty on point. So I don't really disagree with you there. I'm not sure if it's because of his roaming, though. I think he was just playing fights well.
He has steadily improved about his, like, specifically his awareness and participation in team fights, I think has improved. And I think that more than anything at this level of play, what you want is improvement. You want steady, marked improvement rather than seeing somebody go the other way or see them pick a different, like you want to see them trying the same things, trying different things, and getting marked actual statistical improvement. And Winter does have that. So, and that is the same for Fizzy as well. Fizzy and Winter both have more positive stats than they did last split. So
sure. I absolutely detest stats, just to clarify, if you guys ever feel like going ham into those. So, yeah.
I'm a data scientist, so I'll try to steer away from that one for you.
What do you got, Raafaa?
Please say Daption. Please say Daption.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how did I do that? I'm so sorry.
So, Daption, like this split, so he's the guy that's paired up with Arrow, right?
Actually, okay.
He was better. Yeah, he was better last split for me with Team Luke because Team Luke is now on EGA, and those two guys were just like that team wildcard. It was like
that
balls to the wall, bot lane, and if it doesn't work, then like it's just like it's feast or famine. And they played so aggressive, and I thought that Daption was having better looks there with the aggression. Also, his rel is really good, and that was a champion who was more meta in the last split. But it's interesting because like in NA. I think support is like one of the toughest roles to teach just from solo queue. And because we never had a system like Proving Grounds, our NA support talent has always sucked. Like supports have just been like piss bad in this region for years. And because we finally have Proving Grounds and like we're crossing over more with Academy, supports have gotten a lot better. So like we actually have support candidates like we can look at and be like, these guys don't suck anymore. Like Busio, who I remember we were excited about as a mid laner for Polar Ace. This guy has the mechanics. He's 17. He has amazing comms, and like he's still learning his role. And mechanically, is already the best support that like we have in amateur. That guy is really exciting in that role. I also think Rhino is my best support personally. He sees insane engages on Zeus that no one else sees. And then Skytech is brand new from UWO.
Skytech.
His first split playing competitive, he hit Challenger playing AP Recon mid, and like, if he can take those mechanics, go, like, take those into the support role, do that, it's, like, we actually have supports that, like, you can look at now in the system. We could be like, do we have to import at this role? We don't have to anymore. Like, we actually might have good supports that come out of this system, which is good.
Skytech's actually kind of a difficult one for me to judge, because all the games that I watched of EG Prodigies was 30 on Nocturne, and the way every game felt was that you have your top laner, right? And he's zooming along like he's playing Need for Speed. And you have a slipstream. And if you're not following him on the slipstream, you lose the game. And that's what every game felt like. And in full fairness to Skytech, alright, he did follow on the slipstream. And his follow-up engages were really good. Even it's just like you kind of have to pull off a miracle now. But sometimes he was doing it. But because of this, I can't really talk that in depth about Skytech, other than to say his follow-up engages were really good, and I liked him on that, and I'd like to see him more when their top laner isn't so giga tunnel vision that you have no choice but to go in and flip it or lose the game, you know?
30's got main character syndrome, and we all recognize that. I think very syndrome. Yeah. 30 is the main character of that. He is making all the calls. He is bossing. The reason, I think, Kelsey's probably going to laugh at this, but I think the reason that they gave Skytech a bunch of pets. I mean, sorry, 30 a bunch of pets. Skytech is a child. Like, Skytech is a baby. So, I mean, like, 30 just gets to use, like, they were like, you know what? We want this guy. We're developing this talent. If we give him 4 pets to just, like, follow him around the map, then we'll just have his eternal allegiance. So,
oh my god.
You know? See what you can do. I'm not wrong. I know I'm not wrong.
You're not actually. No, I actually like that comparison. Like my notes is literally Crazy Gamer 30 is an NSF's vehicle, and his team has to follow Slipstream or lose. That's literally my notes for this, right? Like the only other top that I've really called like a Crazy Gamer is Quacker, right? But 30 is like a version of Quacker where everyone is playing around him all. Like it showed that he's shot calling there. Like his jungler is coming up there when he's going to Crazy Gamer it. And if you don't, like he's gonna do it anyway. And his team had to play around it in every fight, which did put them at a disadvantage sometimes when they're going like full dive into like full disengage. They will still play full 5-man dive because they have no choice.
I mean, when you look at the fall in 2020 when Evil Genius's Prodigies just barely Brandon were acquired by Evil Geniuses and were formerly Zenith Esports. That whole roster and the strength of that roster was putting Surdy on Camille Kennan and then letting him lead the engages or the picks. I mean, there's a very highly played clip of one of our colleagues, Mazel, just going absolutely bonkers over Surdy's Kennan engages over and over again. So I think during the spring split, Surdy did not get to feel, as Kari put it so eloquently, main character syndrome, because that meta did not favor Surdy as well as it did in prior seasons. In fact, it was more about jungle, as Tomio was the main character of that roster during the spring.
Is that still Tomio on the roster? Or
Yes.
Yeah, it's still Tomio. He has we don't play on Tournament Realm all the time. So C2 Medios and Draven 696969 are both Tomio, yeah. Tomio actually is a player that, like, he's still in high school, mechanical freak, very high on him as a jungle talent. And EG has like a nice bunch because Surdy in the top lane as well. He was rank 1 on the ladder in OS. He hit top 10 in Korea for like that ladder too. Like, he's just a mechanical freak. But he definitely has some Jojo Pyun issues at the moment where it's a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde. And I think the last game that a lot of us remember of Surdy was him going 0-10 on Wukong at like the 18-minute mark in game 5.
You're either the guy carrying or you're the guy feeding. Either way, everyone's paying attention to you.
The thing with Cersei, though, there was a game, so it's really hard to judge their mid laner. It's so hard to judge that team's mid laner. Because he has to give up so much for Cersei. Like, I remember a game where Cersei's being dove like 1v4, and there's no way, right, as a mid laner, with wave bouncing away from you, right, in a really bad matchup for you, by the way, because they just made him pick Orianna, like, 5th in a terrible scenario, right? He just TP's top, and it's like, there's no way that you're doing that without someone just yelling in your ear that if you don't go top, he's gonna, like, stab you in bed or something, right? Like, there's no way this could possibly go well, right? This had to be, like, a Cersei call. You know, but because they're mids in so many scenarios, I can't even judge the guy. Just so weird. And the only times where I see that Draven 6969, which I didn't actually see him play a game called that, but I have to call him that from now on, by the way. The only times I saw Draven 6969 like super on his game was when he's top, and he has to be because like the pressure goes through the fucking roof when 30's screaming in your ear. But like conversely, I remember when he was bot at one point and he had like, the biggest brain lag ever, where he does a gank. He moves back, and he starts hitting a pink ward. I remember this so vividly. He starts hitting a pink ward once, right? And then Nautilus engages on his AD and support, right? And he just keeps killing the pink ward, and then after his support's dead, then he moves in, right? Like, in the fight, I think he's fine, but he has those brain lag moments. But if it's happening top, it's full steam ahead for everyone. That team's so weird, actually, to watch. And difficult to judge.
It's funky. I think the big thing too is that it's a really young team, and Mist was the veteran that anchored them in the last split. And for me, what EGP was really good at is veteran. I shit you not, this team had the best mid game out of any team like in the ecosystem, including LCS teams. Like last split with Mist, they were the only team that actually knew how to play around Rift Herald. I absolutely shit you not. Like they were so good at manipulating the wave states. They would go from like being down 1.5k gold at the 10-minute mark to up 1.5k by 15 because they were the only team that actually knew how to like rotate around Rift. And that is like completely lost. And the team kind of looks like a chicken with their head cut off now. But also, sometimes it's a beautiful disaster. And like there are talents on that team. And I have faith that like the EG staff can turn it around because in Proving Grounds with Danny, that EGP team took 5th, 6th, like amongst all the academy teams, right? They're really like, they have a lot of talent. The staff proved that like they can turn it around. I have faith in like the staff that EG has, and I'm looking forward to like seeing what kind of high they can hit. But they've definitely lost some of that mid game magic because like they were the only team in that tournament that was actually good at mid game besides like 100 Thieves. Like everyone else did not know how to play mid game except for EGP, and they've lost the magic now that Mist is gone. So they got to get it back.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to add about EGP then? Nope. We're good to go? Do I have anything in my notes about this? I have sure you knowledge good hands meh. There you go. Alright, so the next team then, because you guys were all really excited when I brought up the name Busio, and staying on track on teams with players that are difficult to judge is gonna be 100 Thieves next. And why I say they have players difficult to judge is that there will be games where they're either playing like super hard around bot, right? Like the Callista Turret game that they did, right? And there I think Instinct looks really good. But then there are games where I cannot, there's no way that I can possibly judge their mid laner because Instinct's like playing bot alone with teleport and Busio's just like decided mid lane is the lane that support this has to be played in for like 10 minutes straight. Right? And because of this, it's really difficult to judge a lot of how their individual solo laners actually play because Busio is just so active around the map. To Instinct's credit, he doesn't actually sprint it when Busio's doing all of this. But I can't quite judge their mid right now. I can't quite judge their jungle. I can't really judge much on this team. So I'm really interested in what you guys have to say on them.
So Instinct comes from a history of playing, I think his competitive debut was on Mirage Esports last year during the 2020 Scouting Grounds circuit season. He came in after Neo, or back in the day, Asta had been promoted to Optic Gaming Academy, and then and now eventually is on Dignitas in the LCS squad. At the time Instinct was called Asilian, he was 14 years old, or
15.
just turned 15.
No, he's now 16. But yeah, he was 15 when he debuted.
Oh, right. He had just turned 15 when he debuted on Mirage Esports of 2020. Super young player. That team heavily prioritized the top side of the map because you had Hayami, who was a very aggressive jungler, wanted a lot of resources. A lot of times they would make Robbie Bob or Tony Top play a supporter solo laner like Lulu. A lot of times they would play like Lulu Graves. Or they would play something like X plus Rek'Sai. And so basically, Mist, who was also on that roster, would roam a lot and support the top side of the map. So Instinct was a super young player and was playing with minimal resources and still contributed to late game team fights. And going into Spring Split, even though 100 Thieves Next did not qualify for Proving Grounds and didn't even qualify to compete in the Tier 1 tournaments, neither for Unified Grand Prix, Wisdom, or Nerd Street, he was still by far one of the best team fighting AD carries, and he is 16. And his positioning, I remember seeing a scrim and a VOD of them playing against one of the top amateur teams at the time, Zeus. He and Busio 2v5 to fight in the jungle on a Aphelios Thresh, and it was the most disgusting thing ever. And the fact that if 100 Thieves, I think I was reviewing with Smacks at the time, we both said that if they can get Instinct to the late game stage, Instinct will always be able to carry these fights. The laning phase was something that had to be worked on since Busio was new to the support role, coming from mid lane, but they have put in an entire Spring Split into practicing and adapting to that new role. Busio is very mechanically gifted, as Cubby already mentioned, coming from the mid lane role, and they are looking to be one of the stronger bot lanes coming into summer.
So when I'm watching these two, in laning phase specific, I mean, when Busio decides laning phase is going to happen, Busio is definitely playing further up than Instinct, but Instinct's not bad about like following up on Busio's calls, and I think they actually have pretty good judgment in 2v2. Busio's mid game around the map is really good. I mean, really good. That's the part where he impresses me the most, and that's something that I feel like I can't see from like Skytech in the situation that he's in right now, because the rest of the team doesn't like let him play those kinds of states out. But Instinct's ability to just be really relevant, no matter what the early game state was, has been very impressive to me. This, for everyone watching, is the team that has Gamsu top. Despite the fact that it has Gamsu top, it hasn't actually been the same story that it was like when I saw Dokla playing top in Amateur, for example, where Dokla was definitely just fisting every lane non-stop and then playing really well in fights. He has actually been challenged somewhat in top in laning phase, though he did obviously, like in the Gnar game for example, he didn't do so well in lane, but then he was doing really well in the team fights. He got like that 3-man Gnar ult in the river and stuff, but this doesn't feel to me like a team that's completely defined by Gamsu being there. It definitely feels like a team where I'll just always look at their bot lane and how they play to see how the rest of the game goes. But that's, I guess, at least my take on it. It's actually just quite impressive to me that the bot lane is impactful both when they're quite irrelevant in the early game and when basically the whole game pivots around them, like the Kalista game, right?
Yeah. So. They're 16 and 17 respectively too. Like any young roster that you want to put together with NA talent you got to include Instinct and Busio. Like 100 Thieves are like, them and EG have 2 gold mines of talent when you combine like the academy and the amateur rosters that they have for the long run. It's very impressive. Okay,
so no one was allowed to say Robbie Bob, who is someone that I have actually heard, right? Because there was a great insistence by one of you that Wildcard Black is not a bad team. So I would like to know what Wildcard Black is then.
When I say not a bad team, I didn't want to say that Quacker was the only good player on that team.
Okay.
I think Robbie Bob is also someone else that is... I think the solo lanes of Wildcard Black are by far the strongest 2 players that hold up everything together. Mm-hmm. I think Clem is a decent jungler, and I know he comes from the collegiate scene, if I'm not mistaken, Cubby.
Purdue.
Purdue University. For me, I don't think Clem matches the top junglers in semi-pro at the moment, but I think those 2 solo laners in Wildcard Black are pretty much what hold that team up. I think there's still a lot then remains to be said about Minoy and the support for Wildcard Black, which I think is Yasin, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Yasin.
Yasin.
Yasin's pretty good.
Yeah. I will say there was a couple moments that Minoy played weak side and actually did well, but I don't think it's anything to be singing huge praise about soon. I think really all the credit goes to the solo lanes of Wildcard Black. So that is my clarification.
I actually completely agree with you there, at least from the things that I've seen. I actually think the way Robbie Bob plays the map is actually quite impressive. He seems to be like it does feel like he makes up for Clam a lot. Clam being the jungler when he does it. So I was quite impressed by him because he's both good in fights and he's quite strong on his roams, and he's basically making up for his jungler while doing it. He's also making up for his support while doing it as well. Though like roaming supports are quite rare. There's basically 2. So yeah, I don't really disagree with you there. Quacker for me is if he feels like Adam, who was the top laner for K-Corp that just became the top laner for Fnatic. But he feels like Adam without Targamas and Shinkrov, which is a very big, distinct difference. Because Targamas and Shinkrov would be there every time Adam felt the urge to go in, which was the entire game. So he was basically the Busio of top lane there, I guess you could think of for Targamas. Quacker doesn't really have that. And it also feels like Quacker's not like insane on every champ. And even on champs he's really good at. It does feel like he kind of misjudges when a fight is really good to go in or not. Kind of like a low-tier version of Surti, I guess, in that you know he's going to go in no matter what. But I feel like he's somewhat a bit more limited. Like the Renekton game, I thought he was good on Renekton, but he was just completely misjudging some of these instances that he was going in, for example. But you guys speak like really highly of him, so...
I think that the top lane talent pool is pretty low, and not many people hold a candle to Alorum and Dokla, but Quacker did. And that's why like it feels like he's one of the few top laners, like him and Faisal are the only 2 that I've like been kind of hyping up that haven't gotten academy exposure yet. So that's why I speak highly of him, yeah. Okay. I don't know what Kari thinks, but yeah.
That being able to have the instinct to go in at all is more valuable than not. I think it's a lot harder to teach that to like actually take the chance. And I think that Quacker's teachable.
Yeah, so. I mean, teaching someone to like go in less is way easier than giving someone a personality transplant where they go in more. Yeah.
Yeah, forward gameplay is impossible to teach in team fight. It's impossible. You've got somebody who will play or somebody who won't. Like, that's it.
Sure. All right. Cool.
He's got it.
Are there then any other amateur teams that you guys want to talk about? We haven't talked about TSM amateur, I guess. But that's the last one that I kind of have left on my list of the ones that I've watched. I didn't watch any of the Dignitas ones, so if we do want to talk about that, you guys are going to have to take most of it. What do you guys think of TSM amateur? Because you had a lot to say about their jungler, right, Rafaa?
Yes. Representing Utah. In fact, between him and Young Mid from 100 Thieves Next are the only two players that come from Utah. So, and because me and Kari don't have any other relevant people in our fucking state, then we've got to do all we can to hype up the boys from the Mountain State. So, Frost Forest is someone that mainly was in a lot of Dark Horse semi-pro teams in the past in 2019, and I don't even think he participated that much in 2020 until he came in as a sub for Polar Ace. But 2019, he was on Fruition Esports that eventually became Team Front. These were all teams that, both of these were teams that challenged some of the top dog teams in semi-pro at the time, which were Radiance and Supernova, when they had like some of the best rosters in the game at the moment. And then in Polar Ace, when Frost Force came into sub, this was also the roster that had Busio as a mid laner at the time. Those two were the sole reason that they took 100 Thieves Next to 5 games. And they almost beat them, and we almost had a final where it was them and a new esports instead for Challengers Uprising. Unfortunately, they could not close it out. But that was a roster where Frost Force came in after the third fucking sub jungler like said, nah, I gotta go. And they had like cycled through Infectrix and Pytrix, I don't know. Pyswag.
Yeah, Pyswag. Yeah.
So, for him to come in on such short notice and almost win the series against 100 Thieves Next back then was quite an accomplishment. And now Frost Force just won collegiate finals with Doxa, who is also on TSM Amateur through Winthrop University.
Let's beat Maryville.
Yep. They beat Maryville University, who has been the undisputed king of collegiate for the past couple of years.
Okay, so this is a lot of hype. Is TSM Amateur's performance this week indicative of normal TSM Amateur?
I have no idea because I did not get a chance to watch.
They got completely obliterated over and over again.
Fantastic.
And Doka basically... Yes, okay.
Did you just say yes, Cubby? I think so too, unfortunately.
Okay,
no, that's why I made noises. I was afraid to say it first, so I was just like waiting for Cubby. I was like, come on, I can't do this alone.
All right, Kari.
If you're wondering why Resolve is the way that it is, the thing that they're missing is Gorica, who is on this TSM roster, and he doesn't fit here.
Oh, okay.
This puzzle piece is going into a square peg, and it needs to be back on Resolve to get them wins.
It's difficult to judge anyone on TSM Amateur, except maybe like Doka actually did look like he was positioned well in some instances, but honestly, the whole team is just not on the same page in any fight. They're just not.
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead, Cubby.
Doxa is good. Winthrop, they won a collegiate championship, but the thing that was more impressive about Winthrop is that they were the 17th place team in Proving Grounds. They were 1 spot away, or 2 spots away, my bad, from qualifying for Proving Grounds as a collegiate roster. And that was led by Doxa. This guy, mechanically, his good plays, his pop-off moments look absurd as a mid laner. He was playing Akali before, back last split, in the mage meta, and was just styling on kids. Same with Zed. Doxa's good. I also have faith in Gorica. TSM ran a massive scouting ground campaign that was part of Reggie's, we're spending $8 million on League of Legends and investing more in NA talent when he was talking about the ping. And I really don't know how TSM, ran a massive scouting ground that was that big and then came up with their top jungle and support. and they like already had to like fix one of the pieces by putting in Frost Force instead of Infectrix to try and reignite some of the mid jungle duo that Doxa and him had. But I really like. There are a lot of better options than Eclipse and Dawnbray that an organization like TSM could have went for, and they didn't get. So,
did this scouting grounds involve like a series of private 5-on-5s, like tryout sort of thing, or
so I don't like I coach a collegiate team, and I had a couple of my players compete in it. They split it up where it was like Chowie players and like master tier and then like D1 players. So I had my guys like in the middle because like we're collegiate, so they didn't get in the Chowie thing. But I know like other players that were talking with TSM about going, and they opted into going with other rosters they thought would be more successful. I don't know like if they were late to the party with building rosters, or if like I don't know like exactly like what happened there, but their third team, it's not great. And I think that Doxa and Gorka are both very good players that have proven themselves on other rosters, but like the other pieces they just put around them, we'll see if things get better with Frost Forest over time, but it's not there. Like their top and support are not good.
Yeah,
so,
I thought their top was pretty fucking tragic, actually, not gonna lie, but I didn't want to say it first. So, but you've opened the door, so now I can say it, and it's all good.
I know. Now we can crap on TSM. It's cool.
There you go, perfect. Yeah, I mean, every time that I've seen a team do like a kind of scouting grounds tournament-esque thing to build their roster, and all times it's basically been stunts. It's never worked out. I feel like it's one of the worst ways to build a roster possible.
So that's funny because Wildcard ran the biggest combine and they won the first split. And everyone in the NA amateur team was like, or scene was literally bitching at Wildcard for running a combine that took up as much time as it did. Mm-hmm. Like, they were like, oh, we can't try out players because like they're all in your combine, which is pretty pathetic because Wildcard were like first to the punch and they won, which is pretty hilarious. But
wait, the players in the combine couldn't try out for other teams.
Oh, they could, but other orgs were mad at Wildcard for putting together like a 160-person combine. Okay. Like, they had a huge combine they put together.
Sure.
And, like, a lot of the roster decisions that were made for NA Amateur this split were made because of that combine. Just because, like, everyone interacted in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the size of it is definitely not something I've ever heard of before. So that's probably going to make a huge difference already. Yeah. Normally the problems with these sorts of things are that you have an insane selection bias beforehand, where the only people who are going to go in and have the free time to go in on all of the amount of games that you're going to do something like this are the guys that already aren't able to join any other team. So you're basically already tryouting the worst of the worst. The people who are going to stick with it for as long as possible are going to be the guys who don't have offers elsewhere. So you're already kind of screwing yourself there. And then at the same time, just having this random set of 5 versus this random set of 5 says nothing about the actual interactions between the players once they get in with each other. But if you have like 160 players in it, then I assume you can start figuring out the interactions a lot easier.
It was massive. Like, it was probably the biggest combine that like NA's ever seen in terms of like what Wildcard was running. And like a lot of the roster decisions for all amateur teams were kind of based off the interactions in there because we had like a 8-week break between Proving Grounds ending and like the second split starting, and it happened just at the right time. Yeah. And like I just find it so ironic how like there were like teams like publicly tweeting at Wildcard like your combine is dumb, it's taking too long, like it's not worth my time, and then they won the first split and they had their second team also make top 8. Yeah. So they just kind of told everyone else to suck it, and they proved everyone wrong.
If you have like 30 people that you've randomly selected and you're doing like a 10-man set and another 10-man set and another 10-man set, the odds that you've paired like 2 people together, like jungle support or mid jungle or top jungle or some pair like this that magically have synergy, given that you're also pre-selecting for like the worst players there anyway, is astronomically tiny. But out of 160, at least one of them is going to show good synergy in some area, and you can probably start building a 5-man team out of that, right? But yeah, normally when I see this stuff, it's an absolute disaster and has created some of the worst teams in European history. So I'm quite biased against these things in the first place. The ability to do a 160 combine is something I'm going to have to look into in terms of how on earth they were able to get that many players to agree to it. In Europe, just even getting players to agree to it's difficult.
It was the perfect gap in the schedule, and I mean, if their combine went well, they got 2 good teams out of it. But if you want to see how a bad one went, we can talk about TSM more if you want.
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't really have too much to say about them because they basically lost every game in the first 7 minutes, right? They just completely misjudge an early skirmish in River or an early dive. Everybody manages to misplay horribly relative to what each other was doing. Rafaa takes an absolutely massive drink because his boy from Utah's not doing well in this section. And... And that was basically the games. So if you guys have anything else to add to it, go for it. Because normally, shitting on TSM works really well with audiences. So, by all means.
It's true. Rafaa's gonna die.
Dude. Man.
I can segue from this into Academy. You guys won Academy today. Alright, I was surprised, but you did, you know. So I can move into that. Hostfire's not there. I don't know if there's an Utah player. Is there another Utah player you can bring up whose team isn't doing dog shit?
No, I mean, the only two Utah
sorry.
players are Young Mid for 100 Thieves Next and Frost Forest for TSM AM. So.
100 Thieves Next have some promise.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
He's getting kind of like hand waved by Busio every game, but like, yeah. Alright, cool.
17-year-old freak.
I'm happy to move to Academy unless anyone has something really pressing to say about the rest of the amateur teams. Because I haven't even been able to watch the rest of the amateur teams. Like, it's just not... VODs are really hard to find.
The only thing I'll say, if Cinnamon Bread ever gets a good team and competes, he will smurf. Just saying.
Can you say who Cinnamon Bread is? Because when you began that sentence, I thought you were talking about food.
Cinnamon Bread was this insane mid laner that took a game off of Golden Guardians Academy by himself. He fucking 1v9'd a set, and it was the most beautiful thing ever. And I want him to have an actual team so that he can compete in semi-pro.
Okay. Kari, your cameras failed, by the way, and now, for some weird reason, Discord has decided that Raafaa is you. Okay.
The priority. I think she's getting some water real quick as we swap over to Academy.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to Academy, you guys can explain the landscape again. Who are the good teams? Who are the bad teams? Who are your ones to watch?
Yeah. So Academy right now, it is much like the LCS in the fact that 100 Thieves are actually the top dogs. And props to them, they're the top dogs because they stuck with the core of their 100X amateur squad from last year. And guess what? Tenacity and Kenvi, it looks like amateur all over again because they're just bodying kids in the top side of the map. Poom is the best support in the league so far this split, which I think would surprise a lot of people, especially with how good Isles and Ayla were in the last split. And Luger looks like he could be a top-tier LCS AD carry, and guess what? He's playing an amateur. And also Ryoma is just winning all 3 lanes across the map every single game the Thieves play. So it's literally all 100 Thieves. Yeah.
Ryoma looks undisputedly like the best mid laner in Academy.
Like, we interviewed Golden Glue today, and he said that he thinks that if they're playing an LCS, they'd be a top 6 team. And honestly, like looking at them, they're 12-3 in Academy, and they're insane. Like, they're playing really, really good league.
Isn't the main 100 Thieves teams doing really well in LCS as well, right?
Yes.
I'm actually not quite sure. Okay, all right.
They're top of the table, and both, at least in the LCS, 100 Thieves across the board were the first team that were like really abusing the Enchantresses before everyone figured out they were busted. So that helped. But they're top of the table at the moment, and it's all from homegrown in-house talent.
And Ryoma.
And Ryoma and Luger, yeah. But, yeah.
Alright, cool. Okay, so outside of them then, what are the teams with the best chance of being able to take on them?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak on them too much, but the funny thing is that CLG Academy did 2-0 100 Thieves. I think it was...
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't?
No, 100 Thieves haven't gotten 2-0 at all.
Oh, I'm smoking then. I'm sorry.
Yep. I'll check my notes.
CLG Academy 2-0'd someone, and it was pretty big. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? This is insane.
That was today, right?
It's open.
They got 2-0 today by TSM, no?
Yeah, they got
That
2-0
sounds
today
right.
by TSM, so
Yeah.
that's not right. I know CLG
Are you
Academy,
confusing
like,
the LCS results?
no, because that was a 3-0 for CLG across the weekend. I know CLG Academy did 2-0 someone, and I'm trying to figure out when and where.
That was really confusing, by the way, making the transition to Academy on that. That Academy's BO2, but Amateur was being BO3 everywhere. That was really confusing for me.
CLG haven't 2-0'd anyone all split, Rafa.
CLG
They've
don't look
gotten
bad
2-0'd.
at all, though. CLG don't look bad at all. RJS in particular was kind of surprising me of how he was playing, because he's kind of known as like an LS stand, so I generally expect a certain kind of playstyle when that happens. But this guy was like dropping waves left and right to fix the map and win the map for his team, which was not something I was really expecting. How do you guys find this guy?
Golden Guardians Academy was the team that 2-0'd
Cheers.
yesterday.
We're
That's
on
what I was
RJS now.
Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, CLG.
I don't have a incredibly high opinion of RJS. I don't know if like you have any strong opinions about RJS, Kari.
I have to go back and look at my articles to remember. I remember specifically seeing a few games with RJS, but I don't remember. I don't have any strong impression. I have a stronger impression of Hooks than I do of RJS.
What do you think about Hooks,
sets.
then?
What do I think about Hooks?
Yep.
I think that this is we've already struggled to talk about support impact, but I do think that being able to show an ability to engage is good. He doesn't have the team to back him up, and I don't think that is necessarily a good judgment call on his part. Like, I don't think you should be engaging main character style again if you don't have a team that will back you up and you aren't like positioned for it. But I do think that he has that thing, that instinct to actually engage. And if he had follow-up, I think that it would have been more successful.
I was trying to judge if I liked him today. And honestly, I just ran out of time before the show even began. Because he was the other player that seems to be doing well, but I don't know if that was like results-based analysis on my part or not.
The OG is weird because I really like their mid-game setups. Like, they understand how to set up a team fight, but their early games like have been so abysmal that like they're just down 3K or 4K gold, and like they have a good setup, like they lose to like the wallets to the other team. But like they at least have an idea of like how to team fight. It's just their early game needs patching up. And I've really liked how RJS is on set, because you're right, like he's good at fixing map states when he's able to have an impact on something like set or nocturne, where he can like get around early. And I think that like that's where CLG might be able to hit their stride.
Keel is also someone that is really fun to watch because apart from Surenfire, he's the only other player that has brought out Fiddlesticks to jungle during this time, which is, I love Fiddlesticks in this meta when it's all about team fighting, and CLG Academy is much in agreement with Cubby. Their early game, not the best, but as my camera freezes, but they understand that team fighting is very powerful and that a lot of Academy teams, they can beat just through team fighting. Now, if they're able to get through the early game without being exploited, then they have an easier time of being able to actually ride that out. Their ability to counter-engage is also surprisingly pretty good because they understand how to play around chokes and when they can take fights in their favor once the enemy team goes too far forward. And notably, they did not 2-0 this team, but when they went 1-1 against Evil Geniuses Academy, Evil Geniuses had a huge lead in one game, and then CLG just started wrecking them in the mid game because exactly that. There's a lot of times when they were playing into the choke points and disrespecting CLG's composition, and they punished them and just had superior team fighting.
Okay. Well, yeah, the superior team fighting thing I think's definitely a good point against evil geniuses, because it feels like they always seem to suck when it gets to team fight scenarios. Though today they were winning fights they just never should, because enemy Swain just decided that he didn't want to be a champion, even though he countered like everything. Literally, like, no, but off, like I've watched 2 Team Liquid series, right? And after that, my only note for Team Liquid is just Lamau. That's literally just my notes for them. And it has it has the benefit of giving me an almost perfect recollection of how Team Liquid have been playing. But when it comes to Evil Geniuses, they look to me like a team that has really good solo lanes, and then if we're talking about supports not having that good engage judgment, Mystique's doesn't seem to be hitting his stride like he was back on the EU side. But I don't know enough about the history of how this team's been performing with Mystiques to know if that was just like a this week thing or if that's like a normal thing there. Because for me right now, they're basically their solo lanes, and then Contracts does play really well, though I do remember like 2 days ago he had that Inzin Zhao game. But outside of that, he's had really good games overall. But their bot lane just doesn't seem to be doing that well, and that does start to impact their team fights a lot, because that's mostly where their engage ends up being. So what do you guys think about that? Cubby.
Team looks good. Just want to put it out there. I think Team Luke is someone that is, even when he was a sub for CLG Academy in the spring split, and before CLG Academy was starting to figure this shit out, Team Luke was one of the brighter spots of that, and he was just a fucking sub. Coming on to Evil Geniuses Academy, we were excited to see him there because we think Team Luke deserves it, and he's insane.
Okay.
I don't know how his synergy is gelling up with Mystique's at the moment. Because laning phase wise, there's been 2v2s that they win, and there's other 2v2s they take and they abysmally lose. And then Team Luke is out of the game for the next like 10 minutes while he's farming.
Their bot lane synergy is not there yet. It's not been great so far this split. No.
Yeah, they do seem to be playing 2 different games. It reminds me a lot of like because obviously I'm gonna have more EU people watching this than NA probably, just because of who I am. But like I would immediately compare them to like the Mad Lions, Kazi, Kaiser lineup when they are playing online. When they're playing online, they're playing 2 separate games and things start looking really in. But the guy who's going really crazy instead of being Kazi appears to be Kaiser in this one, which would be Mystiques. So it does seem a bit weird to me. This Tony Top guy, I swear to God, was supposed to be like a meme a few years ago. But he's like playing really well in the games that I've watched him play, at least. Like, how's he developed?
Tony Top was, when he got into the Scouting Ground event for fall 2020, he got in not because of being one of the top 2 teams qualified through the final Faceit event, but because he was the highest ranked top laner going into the event. The second one was someone that isn't even in Proving Grounds at all this split. I don't even... Do you remember his name, Cubby?
Gibble.
Oh, yeah.
Cubby remembers everything, man. Man's an encyclopedia.
Yeah, Gibble is... Yeah. Anyway, Tony Top was someone that was known a lot for split push play in solo queue. Jax and Camille being huge ones. Wukong, also another one that he wanted to bring before a lot of people wanted to bring Wukong back into the meta. Mirage Esports, as we talked about before, the team that Instinct was on and had to play weak side a lot of times for. He wanted to bring out a lot of unique picks and flex his champion pool. In a way, he reminds me of... He makes me think of a lot of like APA but top lane, just because he plays that role very differently than a lot of other top laners do. And so when he first got picked up for Evil Geniuses, thanks to his performance on Team Infernal during the Scouting Ground split, or the Scouting Ground event, he was insane. Because on Mirage, he was struggling to make an impact because the resources on that team was so funneled into Hayami a lot of times, and love Clement, but he was not the best player on that roster. And there was a lot of times where he was given the keys to the kingdom and he choked when it mattered, which sucked. and Tony Top was done it out of resources because of the way that Hayami played around the map and away from Tony Top. When Tony Top actually is given resources and he's played around, he looks insane. And you see a lot of his individual play is also quite immaculate.
Okay, so on their other solo laner, every time I was watching this guy, like an hour before this, Cubby kept mentioning his age, so I assume this guy is viewed as like a bit of a prodigy? Yeah?
Yeah, we
Jojo
have a
Faker.
joke that... Yeah, we have a joke that
It's
this
actually
is...
Faker.
When we're watching Evil Geniuses on the stage for the LCS roster, a lot of times I say, this is the Jojo Pyun waiting room, and that when he turns of age in December, it'll be the best Christmas present for Evil Geniuses. Because they'll have an domestic mid laner that is actually insane and really good. And they no longer need to use the import slot for Jizuke.
So, what makes this guy really good then, other than his hands? You're not allowed to just say that.
So, we've got like talking with some of the EG staff as well. First off, Jojo was actually a professional Fortnite player who is now swapped over to League, and I do think there is something to be said for someone that's like a pro at multiple games because that's tough. So he matured a lot going from Fortnite to League, but his champion pool, like at first it was small, but like it sneaks up on you. And he actually, like everything I've heard about this guy from behind the scenes, from players that play against him in solo queue, like he is one of the most respected players on the server. He was the #1 mid in the NA solo queue last split. This guy is like, every story you hear about him is like he's a good teammate. He's already like making calls. He can play XYZ champion. He has insane mechanics. And that team, it just runs through contracts and JoJo. Like they pick mid jungle priority and they run the freaking map. And EG went from being a 10th place team in the spring in Academy to taking second in a team that qualified them for Proving Grounds. And then they got top 4 in Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
And like going from 10th to top 4, a lot of it was improvement from other pieces on the map. Like Tony Top got way better. I don't think I Will Dominate has a personal vendetta against him as much anymore. He used to. Usually goes on Twitter tirades about how bad he is. But like the team's good, and it just revolves around JoJo. And it's like, does JoJo have a good game or not? He like that's the one knock on him, is that he lacks consistency. But the kid's fucking 16, so that's going to come with time, right? And his highs, he hits some of the highest highs of any player that we have in Academy. It's disgusting.
Is he a crazy gamer? I just need to know if he
Yes.
just has to go in all the time. Alright, if he does, then it'll be good. Like that for me ends up kind of judging it. Alright, I'll definitely watch a lot more of him before the next time we do this for sure.
I do remember it was EGA versus CLG Academy during the Giant Slayer games. Him and RJS had a crazy lane against each other. I think it was like,
Oh, yeah.
it was like a super, super messy back and forth. I'm like reading my notes from back then. But during that, it was EGA versus CLG Academy, and I think I remember it being fairly. It was the first time that I had seen RJS actually do something relatively competitive. And you had mentioned RJS before, right?
Yeah. I
And you wanted
like
to know how you felt about him. Yeah, the fact that he was able to hold his own against JoJo in that one, it's a benefit to his actual skill here. But yeah, I can't speak more highly of JoJo either.
Sure. Okay, I'm definitely gonna watch more of this guy then for sure.
Also, RJS used to go by the tag Deus and was the COG top laner last year. It's the same person. I don't know if all the EU fans know that. He went for the tag swap. And he played in LCS in the spring as a top laner. I think mid. He's like role swap from mid to top, now back to mid. A player that like they're always high on, but like we like haven't really seen him like hit the high highs yet.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Alright, cool. That's actually really interesting then. Because I mean, JoJo is playing really good. And I've heard really good things about him. But I wanted to kind of like assess where he was in your guys' minds, and apparently he's just giga fucking high. So there you go.
There is not a single player that's spoken as highly of across the board, from competitors, from staff, from teammates, as like in NA as JoJo.
So Jizuki's fucked, is what you're saying.
Sort of, yeah. I actually crunched the stats when DeMonte got demoted, and All of JoJo's stats were like double Demonte's from week to week. It was insane. He doesn't even. It's not even a. It's not funny. He's faker.
Okay. I will not cringe at stats. Okay, so. All right. Tell me about TSM Academy because
Yes.
their
Takeover
mid-laners-
is
Saving
in.
grace. He is the
Takeover's
fucking
in.
second coming of Jesus. Holy shit.
Okay.
He has turned that team from a shitter team that doesn't know what their direction is to a team that can now potentially challenge top 4.
Okay, tell the lovely audience who that guy is, what role he plays, how he carries. Go for it.
He was the highest ranked mid on the ladder in the spring of this year. And I honestly don't know that much about him, but the instant that TSM grabbed him, everyone that was a true Academy fan was like, what week is Takeover going to play? Because Sword was a player that TSM is heavily committed to. He was part of TSM Juniors, the same system that Johnson was a part of at one point. But Sword did not pan out and was the weakest mid laner that we had in Academy. And now that Takeover's in, they took their weakest link, turned it into somewhat of a strong point for their team, and all of a sudden, Haunter was already like putting that entire team in a backpack with Cody-san. And that bot lane's actually good. They have a mid laner and a jungler that are both developing very heavily. Hyper comes from Illinois State, a big collegiate program that we have. They took top 4 as well, I believe, or top 8. Top 8. Yeah, there we go. Top 8. And he's on TSM. He has a lot of greenness to him, but TSM actually has a plan to like develop talent with their academy team, which is pretty cool. Like they have 3 prospects and 2 veterans. Like that hasn't happened a lot before for TSM. So it's just the Haunter, Cody putting everyone in their backpack, and the kids learning, and they're getting better. So that's good.
It definitely didn't feel like it was the Haunter Cody show. At least when I was watching them today. Like, it definitely felt like it was a mid-jungle show. Like, mid-jungle
And that's a good thing.
They
That
play
is-
really well around their mid, right? But then off that advantage, he would honestly just take over the game. Like, he'd go on side lanes and he'd make things happen. And that was
Yeah.
really unexpected, to be honest, for me. Like, you guys are calling him Jesus, but I actually hadn't heard of this guy before today, so...
Well, you know
He's
why?
Jesus because he's saving TSM.
Well, you know, the funny thing is that so his country of birth is South Korea, but his nationality is actually Chilean, because this dude is from Latin America all the way down to Santiago. And the other team that he was actually playing on in competitively, the big one for any Latin American fans is Chaos Latin Gamers, or KLG.
Oh, I remember
during
them.
the 2020 season. Yeah. I think the most relevant player from KLG back in the day was Tierwolf, and then you had Gotobaco, the mid laner.
Tierwolf. Holy
Yeah, I unfortunately remember Tearwolf. Let's move on from that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on. Takeover did play in Latin America for quite some time, 2019 and 2020. And I don't know how he got his move into NA, but he did. And just in his games today against CLG, he was at least double-digit KDA in both games. The Lee Sin is fucking nuts. And I think TSM Academy was always meant to be a team, and they planned on not having Haunter and Cody-san as primary carries, but actually playing through mid-jungle. And Cody-san and Haunter were supposed to be taking the backseat reins, making sure that they are guiding this team and not having to be primary carries, because during the spring, Babip and Sword was not a good combo at all. In fact, this whole team, I felt so bad for Babip because it did not seem like he was on the same page, or
Well, they weren't. Because the
Yeah,
entire team was speaking Mandarin, and Babip didn't understand Mandarin.
Yeah, no, that is the most fucking hilarious thing ever, that you just alienate your fucking jungler who has the most important job in the early game, trying to impact the map, and he can't speak the same language that everyone else is using in comms, because they brought in Yursan from Taiwan, and everyone else is just using
Cody and
Mandarin.
Haunter were fluent in Mandarin, yeah.
And Sword is also half Chinese, half Taiwanese. I don't remember. So, yeah, Babip
Really?
Yeah, in his own fucking core world, trying to communicate with the rest of the team. And it feels like Insec, when he was on Starhorn Royal Club, just using pings. It's like, okay, I want to go here. I want to go here. So like, that team, and if Sword is always going down 100 CS against mid laners for no fucking reason whatsoever, then then that duo jungle mid is doomed. But Hyper and Takeover are a completely different beast. And Hyper has always been a jungler in semi-pro who strongly relied on winning solo laners so that he can do what he is actually good at, and that is shitting on the enemy jungler. Because that is his playstyle. That is what gets him up out of bed every morning, is being able to assert that he is the better jungler.
Okay. What the fuck? That story's mad, by the way. The only time I know of that happening recently was when Don Arts went to Brazil and he had to get benched because everyone else was speaking Portuguese except him.
Peter Zhang's also was coaching in Mandarin too. Like,
nah, but this is so troll. Okay, that's so weird. Why were they insisting on speaking in Mandarin?
because your son, his English wasn't good.
Okay.
I believe that's the story. We talked to we knew that they were speaking Mandarin, and we don't know the full story from TSM, but we just we heard their comms and they're in Mandarin, or they were, but we don't think they are anymore. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone about that lately.
Okay,
but,
alright. Takeover's Jesus, and there's some weird backstory of this team about everyone speaking a completely different language, which is going to be quite interesting to see what everyone says about that. But okay, Golden Guardians and Immortals are the last two that I have on my list, and then you guys are going to get to talk about whatever team you want outside of that, because I again don't have Dignitas on my list. Actually, I just didn't watch any Dignitas team, I guess. Alright, Golden Guardians. I really like their bot lane. Discuss.
Yes. Prismal's very good.
Prismal's the guy. He is.
Yeah.
Poismo.
Quizmo. Ooh, just kidding. I'll never say that again. I'm so sorry. Wow.
That's a solo queue tag. So, yeah.
Something just took over me there. Yeah. Rosethorn's decent too. I think Rosethorn is really modest too and moldable. Like one of those people who really is hungry to learn and has showed a lot of ability to. Honestly, that's all you can expect from kids this age. Is just be open and don't be high ego. I don't have anything to say about Niles, so.
Do you have anything to say about Yumby? Because he looked decent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yunbi's great.
Cool.
And Yunbi's actually a really good person too, so that means a lot.
Oh, great. So you won't get benched for attitude issues, which is a very, very common trend in this day and age.
He won't get a coach fired, apparently.
It's a pretty infectious virus that we have over here in NA.
Love
attitude
Chipotle.
issues.
Yeah.
We have it in the EU as well, actually. So yeah, it's just happening everywhere. Actually, you guys caught it from us because we sent Alfari and Sven over to you guys. So
the
that's
attitude
right.
COVID, I see.
What is we just need Tinks and Dardoch now to make a team, and then
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
it'll be good.
Perfect. There you go.
Sorry, our environment is too fragile to handle EU alphas coming over.
Oh,
You've seen what
wait.
Alfari did,
Alright, okay, what about Newbie then? Because you guys were all pretty good on Prismal, but I also thought Newbie was doing really well as well. At least they were both on the same page.
Newbie is the stronger support, one of the stronger supports we have in Academy. The issue with Golden Guardians Academy at the moment is that in the spring split, that bot lane was Prismal and Chime, and they were even more of a standout than what Prismal and Chime look like now. And the consensus from a lot of us were that I thought that the roster change they should have made was put Prismal and Chime in Academy because their bot lane was so good. And also, Prismal's a shot caller at AD. Now, I know that part of the reason that the swap was made that we heard is that Newbie's they swapped on the game planners, and Chime's a good engager. And the issue that Golden Guardians had was that the LCS team, no one really had was great at engaging. Niles was doing it, which is something that Niles has never done in his career, playing Scion Gragas. And so I think we're seeing that pretty well because Chime is having a pretty respectable first LCS split up there trying to find these engages, whereas Golden Guardians Academy are really struggling with their team fight setups and finding engages, but there are still bright spots. I think that they just need to find someone on that roster who can pull the trigger, and they're going to be in a lot better situation.
And can Newbie be that guy then?
Well, he wasn't an LCS, so that's why they made the swap.
Alright, okay. Anyone have anything else to say on Golden Guardians? Or then we can talk about Immortals and I can tilt.
Oh my god, what?
They got their first 2-0 against Immortals Academy yesterday. They weren't close well, they were not stomps. They were both 40-plus minute never-ending games, but
that series was gross, but GGA 2-0. Yeah.
GGA 2-0. So, in the interview that they had post-game, Niles actually talked a lot about how he is doing a lot of the shot calling now for this Academy squad, and he is being the no person, the person that says, no, guys, we can't do that, which I find hilarious because Niles was the ultimate ego checker in all of his semi-pro collegiate career.
It's true.
So, but, I think that shows a lot of maturity that Niles went from the person that would probably always says, yes, I can totally fuck this dude 1v1. Oh, I'm playing Gangplank to Lucian against Tenacity. I'll still kick his ass level 1, which he did, to his credit. But now he's gone to the person that is more reserved and is holding the team back. Maybe it's because they lost to Cinnamon Bread in Game 2 of their series in the Challengers Uprising qualifiers.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want to do that again.
Actually, that's a fun context story, is GGA to compete in Cup. Academy teams are allowed to compete in the amateur tournaments. They competed in Cup, and they were knocked out in quarters by Zeus, an amateur team that has like a Lorem, Tuesday, Wiggly. And they also dropped a game to a team of high schoolers in the open qualifiers.
They dropped a game to a team of high schoolers?
Yep.
Yes.
Were these like
Bread
challenger high schoolers or?
Yeah, they were like
Cinnamon Bread
Grandmaster
and
Challenger,
top
yeah.
laner. Yeah, that's Cinnamon.
But they lost to It was a newer start for them. They only had like 2 or 3 days of scrims, but yeah, that happened.
Speaking of massive age gaps, Immortals is somehow a team that's here.
That's a great transition.
That was so good.
I just want to give you my so the other transition I was going to give is that actually like how I saw and got tilted by Immortals was that I watched that series you guys referenced yesterday, right? And it was like, oh, this is Viper versus Nulls. What the fuck's going on here, right? Okay. And then I realized, hang on a second, that's Ander. Hang on, that's Keith. Hang on, I remember Pretty. I was really pissed when Pretty didn't qualify for the EULCS in Season 5, right? And that was my thought process watching, realising what I'm looking at here, right? So, anyway, what do we think about this Academy lineup? Do we have anything to say?
I'm not going first.
I'm not going to talk about Norg. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let Rafa do that.
Rafaa's talked first for most of the night, so I guess I'll bite the bullet here. Viper and Anda were on No.org, which won Proving Grounds.
The amateur
Viper,
team.
the amateur team that won Proving Grounds, beat all the academy teams. That happened over here in NA. It's been a fun first few months investing in the amateur talent. It's been good.
The proletariat.
Yeah. So that team, they had Tapoon and Potluck in the spring. That didn't work out that well. And so they got the best top jungle duo. And the way that No.org were winning is they were just fucking blasting every top laner with Viper. Like, it was their average game time. They just take blue side every game. And he didn't play a single game of Hecarim until the finals of the Proving Grounds. And this is for 70 plus games that they had to play in the amateur circuit. They would take blue side. Five Fire would blind something mid. Five Fire, by the way, he's not even in the system right now because he's like waiting for an academy offer, but that guy's really good too, and we'll get an offer in the next split. Same with Value, the AD on that team, but
yes.
They just blasted every single top jungle setup, and so Viper and Anda got picked up. And right now, some backstory and maybe reasons why they aren't playing too hot is that Viper and Anda are actually still in Canada, so they're playing on 80 ping to the LA servers. And are getting their green card, and they now have those and should be on site for next week. So they haven't
got
hit
their
full strength
visas
yet.
Yeah, they got their visas last Saturday or Sunday. So hopefully they'll be in LA by next week. I don't know if they'll be here in time for this week's academy.
But that's definitely a team where like the only talent they're really developing is Joey, who has also been in the system here and there. And to be fair, I think Joey's actually playing okay at support. But yeah, they're definitely looking to perform in academy, and we expect them to be a top 3 team. And they did split with 100 Thieves today, in probably the best series I've seen out of academy so far this year. It was 2 pretty good games actually. So yeah. But you're right. It's not really a roster where it's like, okay, we're going to see what kind of talent develops. I do know that Viper and Anda picked up a lot of confidence playing an amateur. And to be fair, when you're bodying people for 80-plus games and beat all the academy teams, that's a pretty nice confidence boost. So
I guess they also didn't lose to high schoolers, which I guess would do the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, like I have no hate to any like individual player on that team, but for the org, it's an absolute travesty that you'd use your academy slot like this. Is actually a complete fucking joke. Let's move on.
Just moving on.
To, I mean, unless Kari does want to say something about Immortals, but I believe she doesn't want to perjure herself.
No, I'm trying to be so nice right now.
Cool. Do you want to talk about FlyQuest? That's a team we could talk about.
Yeah, you guys definitely have to like teach me about all these teams though, because I don't have anything for FlyQuest and I don't have anything for Dignitas. So
Tomo's a god.
You don't want to talk about FlyQuest? They're the second best team in Academy right now.
I know, but I don't want to talk about Diamond because I can't say nice things.
Okay, well
say
that's
bad
fine.
Things.
You don't have to say nice things about Diamond. You can say some bad things. But you can say nice things about NXI or Kumo.
I remember NXI.
Tomo's.
I casted NXI.
Tomo's great. Tomo's incredible. But yeah.
So FlyQuest right now are like they're 7-1 in their past 2 weeks as its best of 2s, and this team actually make like right now because Academy's best of 2s, it feels like every game it's like just an agreement that we're gonna have over like 1.5 kills a minute in Academy. It's just how it is.
Okay.
But FlyQuest are like, no, we're gonna play macro. And the fun thing about FlyQuest in the last split was that Triple, who's from OS, and then Tomo, who is actually from a college, he subbed in for King and C9 for the summer of 2020 because King couldn't get a second green card or something weird happened there. They're both really good late game team fighters. So FlyQuest would consistently play to lose gracefully in the early game, fight their dragon down like 1k gold with the scaling comp, and then like win from there, right? They didn't have a great proving ground showing, but they came back this split playing fast early, and I think they're the best macro team that we have in Academy, and their side lane management is actually better than most of the LCS teams I'm seeing at the moment. Like they're actually really good at playing the map, and today they made quick work of Golden Guardians in 2 games by playing the map much better than GGA. And it's really off the play of Triple and Kumo, who, with the meta swap, I didn't really think they'd fit, but they do. Like, they've worked their ass off, and the Kumo is playing out of his goddamn mind in the top lane. And the coach hinted in the interview today that he might see LCS time, which Licorice has been kind of slumping, so might happen. I think FlyQuest is really impressive.
And yeah, Kumo had a massive transformation going from being the Cloud9 sub top laner for Academy, just Cloud9 Academy top laner back in early 2019, late 2019, and then 2020.
It was 18-19.
Yeah.
He actually subbed in for Licorice at some point too, because he had wrist problems.
Yeah. He had a decent showing. He did his job. He had an abysmal showing as the Evil Geniuses top laner when they first debuted last year in 2020. But here, on FlyQuest, especially on Lee Sin, this dude, I think the funniest thing, this is a little side tangent, but there are so many fucking solo laners that are so good at Lee Sin that they're better at their jungler counterparts who are supposed to have mained the champion for longer periods of time, which I just find egregiously funny. Anyway, Kumo been playing super well, and NXI being the second prodigal or second prodigy out of 100 Thieves Next in the jungle role behind Kemvi, who had to come in, sub in, and make sure that 100 Thieves Next didn't falter in their performance when Tenacity and Kemvi got promoted, and he was even more of a dynamic force than in Kemvi in different ways. Kemvi played the map smarter but NXI was far more aggressive and was unrelenting. And on this roster, when FlyQuest Academy are able to empower him with things like Kindred Lulu, looks insane.
I remember NXI, because he was that jungler that I was casting who was just permanently forcing things 24/7.
That's right.
And winning because he was playing fights really, really well. He wasn't like a brain-on jungler, but he was a balls-on jungler 24/7. He was really
Yes, sir.
entertaining to watch, like really entertaining.
He still is. Yeah.
He's a bully, the biggest bully.
Hypothetically, speaking of bullying, hypothetically, in a probably different world, how would someone possibly like Diamond be bad, Kari?
Hypothetically, in a different world. Are you trying to get me to talk trash?
No, I'm
Yes.
only about this like specific hypothetical area of someone unrelated to Diamond.
I'm not picking up what you're putting down. I can't do it. I can't be
Why don't you
mean
like
on
Diamond?
this.
You can't announce that you don't. Why don't you like Diamond? Or I'm gonna have to have Cubby and Raafaa speculate on why you don't like him.
I think that it is the veteran player's responsibility to mentor players in academy,
Okay.
especially if they have more experience. And I think that he has a bad attitude, and maybe that's just me, but I think that when I see like overly aggressive pings on the map, like I take it personally for some reason. I'm very sensitive. I'm a sensitive lady. Who loves League of Legends, weirdly enough, and it's broken my soul. But I think that
I love this wholesome.
these are budding
Wholesome
talents,
flame.
and I think that we need to protect academy. Amateur is like the poor kids fighting over scraps in the street. So they've been stabbed, they've scrapped, like they're fine. But the kids in academy, they've got soft hands. They need to be protected, and Diamond does not provide that protection. So,
They're the white collar
anyway.
workers and amateurs the blue collar workers. Yeah.
Never.
See, I was
Yeah,
waiting for
Class
like,
difference.
I was waiting for like, this guy just doesn't leave lane, you know, or this guy just
Oh,
every
no.
engage. This guy has no
He's-
sense of anything. This guy plays Nautilus like it's Janna, and like Janna like it's season 2 Janna, you know, and not
No,
laning
it's-
Janna.
he pinged
I was
too
expecting something like
aggressively.
this. So no. This
Bullying
guy,
the bully.
I swear to God, this guy pings, all right,
He
and
pings
that
so much.
that
He's just a
I
pinger.
cannot abide by. All right, is what
I
I
cannot.
That's a new one.
I mean, it's
I
not
see.
just that, like, he's just not good at multitasking either. And, like, you can, I don't know, man. I hate it. I hate it here.
It's funny because like in the last split there was the swap between Dreams and Diamond, and we
Yeah.
thought that like it'd be a good swap for the FlyQuest main team, and that we felt like Dreams was roaming a little bit better on the map
Wait.
than Diamond.
Dreams.
And now in this split, that's actually flip flopped again, where I actually think Diamond should be in place of Dreams because Dreams is like. That guy has like just one sole focus, and it's to drop a ward in the enemy jungle alone. And he's like really trying hard to do that in the LCS stage, and he's succeeding a lot. Unfortunately, he dies solo doing that a lot. And FlyQuest are off to a slow start in the LCS. So it's really interesting for them because their team is sitting bottom of the table in the LCS, not only like in the overall standings but also the summer standings. And I think their academy team's actually playing really good league, and like. They are one of the few teams that plays slower and manages side waves really well. So I would be curious to see if any members of the academy squad get a bump up because their main roster is struggling.
I mean, if you want to talk
Diamond-
about, go on.
Go ahead.
No, you
No, I
want
was
to talk
just
about
gonna say,
Diamond. You have to continue your sentence.
Is Diamond playing better than somebody should be playing in academy, or is he just playing competently?
He's
is my
playing better
question.
than Dreams. I don't think either of them, like, I would take supports from other academy teams and plug them into FlyQuest Academy's support slot for their LCS team. But their org right now, like, they have a support issue, which needs to be solved if they want to have chances for the LCS. And maybe Diamond is the solution for that. Is it's just like a revolving door back and forth. It's weird.
If you
Or-
want to talk about, I have to do this one on the side. But if you want to talk about like a support who like mentors or like makes a player better, Dreams. I can never forgive Dreams for making everyone convinced that this mid laner that we had in Europe called Pyrion, people were calling him like a top 3 mid laner because
I remember this.
Dreams was like the first support to figure out proper consistent timings for being at Herald consistently that wouldn't ent his bot lane, right? And because of this, because he was getting proper timings to like ward around midsection and pressure midsection, every mid felt obscenely pressured by Pyrion and couldn't do anything about it. But that's because he had like the only support that was playing around mid properly. And I can never forgive this guy, because everyone was saying this Pyrion guy is like top 3, right? They were treating me like I was fucking insane for not thinking that. And then next split, it switches from like being a really heavy topside meta to everyone must play around bot all the time, and Dreams couldn't be there anymore, and suddenly Pyrion looks shit. And everyone was like, wow, I have no idea why Pyrion suddenly became so shit in the course of like one off season. I was like, it wasn't him in the first place, you fucks! So if you do want a support who makes players look good, Dreams is actually one of them. And Dreams deserved a lot more praise there than he actually got at the time. That was actually quite a sad story. I didn't expect to hear that name again. No joke, I didn't expect to hear that name again, so that was quite strange to hear.
Yeah, he's the starting support for FlyQuest, and him and
There
Jose
you go.
Diodo are not on the same page. I need to fix that for their
No,
LCS
I'm
goal.
not lying when I say I don't watch LCS. There you go. Everyone knows.
I mean, it's
Why
Good
would
for you.
you?
Oh, well. Why would I
Good
watch
for
it?
you.
Why would I lie about that? There you go. All right,
We're all
cool.
happy about that for you.
I think the solution to
Okay.
FlyQuest problems
Okay.
is you just promote Tomo to the starting roster
Okay.
over Johnson. And then, and then you can also bring Diamond up there as well. You just bring that whole bot lane duo up there, and let's see if Diamond and Jose Diodo are on the same page, and you actually have a reliable 80 carry in Tomo.
There you go. Okay.
Johnson.
Hire this guy as a GM, or don't, and just steal all of his labor for free on on
No.
Twitch.
Don't
Johnson
hire me
was
as a GM.
doing fine, but
Okay.
interesting.
We move on to Dignitas. You guys can talk about Academy and Amateur for Dignitas if you want. I haven't watched any Dignitas whatsoever. And then I think that's all the teams, but I'm probably forgetting some random team whose name I don't recall.
It's funny that you were upset looking at Immortals roster, because if Dignitas had their roster in Academy with Acadian, I feel like that's the team you would react and have that reaction for
Okay, all right. Let me look at this.
before they
Skin
put
is
in
cream.
Will. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
LCS. How do I get to Academy? Is that just here? Okay, Clan Academy, Dignitas Academy.
Quite the...
Lurlo, Whirl, Saligo. Wait, I did watch this team actually. Because I was like, why the fuck is Saligo here? I thought he was doing really well last split.
Thank you.
That was the most
We're all
egregious
just like-
roster swap ever. That actually made me so pissed.
Yep.
Oh, man.
What did happen here then? Do you guys?
We don't know.
Yeah, no.
We don't
No one
fucking
knows.
know.
We know it's the LCS.
What happened to
like-
Dardoch?
yeah,
This
it's
is
the
attitude
LCS
issues. There you
where
go.
it's like
Saligo just.
there's just behind the curtain. Like we get like the PR statement where it's like we've decided to make this swap going into the weekend, and then we're all just like, the fuck? Like, why is this happening? Literally, the biggest reason that I think they swapped Saligo and Yasui was to get like a buyout and like have him be a more attractive buyout. I cannot fathom like why they would put in Yasui over Saligo. Saligo is a really good mid laner. Like actually like a top like probably the best NA mid laner that we have. And they swapped him out. I really just don't understand it.
Better than JoJo.
Well, like the one that was like in the like LCS, like the best domestic mid laner
Sure,
we had in the
sure,
LCS coming into the season. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sell me on Will, because people keep telling me Will is good. I didn't really see that in the games I watched, but
He's 16.
Yeah.
That's the cool part about him.
Yeah,
That's
about
he's,
Yeah.
being young is a
he's new.
character trait. There you go.
Yeah, I mean he's a infamous solo queue jungler, either known as No Invade Please or what's the other name, Cubby? It's like
Player emotional.
yeah, player emotional. He's interesting. He is definitely a kindred player. I think the other thing to note about this player is that you can see the big difference in when the team does play around him and bends to his will. He looks a lot better. Hence their 2-0 over Cloud9 Academy today. And then the reason why they fucking got smashed by FlyQuest Academy yesterday, 0-2.
Banger. Anyone got anything to add to that?
This is the first weekend we've seen him play because of the Acadian Dardoch situation.
Yep.
Oh,
He was
okay.
just added to the roster.
Okay.
That's why I was saying that, like, I thought you'd like have that reaction to the Dig Academy roster, because their old roster was Lortho, Acadian,
Sure.
Yasui, Spawn, and JJ.
Okay. Spawn is...
Yeah.
Wait, is Spawn... Wait, no. I think I'm confusing.
You would recognize Spawn. He was Polar Ace when you did Cup last year.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
really solid AD, yeah.
Okay.
His
alright.
Ash is amazing.
Alright. Does anyone want to say anything about Dignitas Amateur? Because they were brought up briefly before.
That's all Kari. I have
Kari? Got anything to
nothing
say?
about Dig.
Sig amps. No, clearly not actually. Let me double check though. I have a really bad off the cuff memory, so I always have to see stuff before I actually say anything shitty or messed up. Digmig.
As you can tell, Raafaa is out.
Did he just?
He just BRB game with it. If you don't have anything, I'm happy to just end it there. I just cut it off. 15
I don't have any
Oh.
nice things to say about Dig Amateur or like
They got
Academy.
picked apart.
We'll see. Yeah.
That's fine.
They-
We'll just...
The corpse of this actually fairly decent
So-
team got picked apart.
So what happened to Dig
Oh.
Amateur is they had a bot lane that had one of the best AD prospects that we actually had in North America, this guy Meech. But him and his duo cannot compete as they got banned for boosting in the summer split. And
Oopsie.
it was like super last second, and so every roster was already set for Dig Amateur. So like they had to just go grab like 2 people out of solo queue, literally, like at the last
Yeah.
second. So the team's like kind of doomed for the split because of that. If they had Meech, they would be good. But yeah, Meech was good. But yeah.
Banned for
Yeah.
boosting. This is
Yeah.
some ancient sorcery that you guys have
No,
like
and, like,
concocted it. I haven't heard this
there was
in ages.
there was never like an official Riot announcement, but like
Okay.
I heard from like 4 different people like, oh yeah, they got banned for like XYZ.
I haven't heard
So-
of anyone getting banned for boosting for so fucking long, actually. This is mad.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
actually a fucking tragedy because
Meech is good, yeah.
Meech was actually one of the best AD carries, and like if you want to talk about golden nuggets on a failing team, then at the beginning of the split, Meech was by far the best player on Dignitas Mirage, and it's so sad because apparently Meech refuses to play with any other support other than Trevor, and yet Trevor is like one of the worst supports ever. If his main is Morgana and he claims to be a Morgana specialist, and I see this fucker throw out a dark binding like a goddamn idiot, level 1 in front of 4 people, miss it, and expose himself to the rest of
Ooh.
what was it, Barrage? That was by far the most atrocious thing I'd ever seen. And Meech insisted on playing with him because he felt that he was the best support. At that point, it's just like, dude, if your friend is holding you back, you have to recognize it. You gotta let him fucking
You have
go
to
so you can-
Titanic it.
Yeah, but an ADC's idea of a good support is just does whatever they want. Like, it's the pocket support. It's not the actual, like, roaming, impactful support. It's the support that's up their asshole the entire time. that's an amateur's idea of a good support, so...
Which makes
Yeah.
100 feet next spot lane even more impressive.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Dragoon is also pretty good. Darius specialist
Has his moments.
He is
has
Darius
his
Drip Lord
moments.
for a reason.
Gangplank's really good.
Oh yeah, Gangplank also really good.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a bummer because like that team, like they were the last team to qualify for Proving Grounds veteran, and they were like, they barely even qualified to like participate in the tier 1. So like what happened is that there were 12 amateur teams that like got to participate in the tier 1s with the 4 academy teams. Like then they just took like they had 3 tournaments last split, and they take like 2 teams from each, and Dig won off a tiebreaker to be the 12th team to get in, and then they improved mostly off the fact that their mid laner DNA went from being a Syndra one trick to a legit control mage player that's like pretty good. they improved drastically and like qualified as the last team in improving grounds. But yeah, like because that bot lane fell apart, like if they would have had the bot lane still there, like with Cyber, DNA, and Dragoon, like they would be a team that like we're talking about in a rather positive light at the
Sure.
moment. But because of that situation, it's just doomed.
Alright, okay.
Sucks.
Cool. Okay, I think we got through everyone then. So banned for boosting, bench for buyouts, attitude issues, everyone speaks Mandarin except you. This has been the primer on NA Amateur and Academy. There you go. It's
We made
even
so many excuses.
it's even worse than you guys thought. It's even worse than you guys thought. Right?
We're working on it.